Hello, and welcome to today's story. If you enjoy this kind of content, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more. The story you're about to hear is based on accounts and rumors. Its full truth can't be confirmed. Now sit back, relax, and let's dive right in. I'm not proud of how this started. I was broke, bored, and in that kind of mood where you want to prove fate wrong with a stupid bargain. I work nights loading trucks and had just gotten hit with a surprise dentist bill that felt like a punishment for being born with teeth. I was doom scrolling a forum that isn't supposed to exist when I saw a listing. Vehicle for sale. Cash only. No questions. Must pick up alone. Model. Mid-size sedan. Runs. Clean title. Hardware upgrades included. Do not bring a phone. Do not bring a friend. Coordinates provided after deposit. The price was insultingly low, less than I'd paid for my last phone. The photos were grainy overhead shots, like something from a parking garage security camera. No VIN visible. The only comment under the listing was a string of nonsense characters that looked like someone fell asleep on their keyboard. I told myself I was just looking. I told myself nobody actually buys a car this way. Then I wired the deposit because I am not always the version of myself I like to pretend I am. 3 hours later, a message arrived in the listing's encrypted inbox. 10 p.m., Lot K, Bay 38. Come alone. Cash in envelope. Keys are in the visor. Do not look in the trunk. That last line would have stopped a wiser person. To me, it read like a dare. Lot K was the back lot of a shipping yard by the river. At night, it looked like a place where old metal goes to remember it was once useful. I parked 3 aisles over, walked the rest with my hands in my pockets like I didn't own anything worth taking. A security light buzzed as if trying to warm up to the idea of being a star. Bay 38 held a silver 4-door sedan, the kind of car people forget in movies. Clean, almost too clean, not a speck of dust under the light. A white envelope sat on the windshield with my initials on it, which I had never given to anyone. Inside, a paper title, already filled out to a name I didn't recognize, and a pink sticky note that said, "Sign the back." The keys were indeed in the visor, clipped to a metal tag engraved with V09. The door unlocked with a smoothness that made me think money had been spent recently. The cabin smelled faintly like old pennies and dryer sheets. The dash was bare except for a cheap Garmin GPS, suction-cupped to the windshield. The unit wasn't on, but the power cable was threaded cleanly through the trim, like someone had cared about the install. The radio was stock. The glove compartment bulged. I signed the back of the title because my worst self was driving. I put the envelope in my jacket, and the engine turned over without complaint. A contented purr like a cat that had eaten something alive. The GPS lit on its own. A gentle blue that looked kind in the dark. A menu popped, favorites. The list wasn't street names, it was dates. 2019-06-14, 2020-11-3, 2021-02-09, 2022-08-28, 2023-07-01. All the way down to September 10th, 2025, tomorrow. I stabbed the power button. It stayed on. The favorites list sat there like a row of gravestones. I put the car in drive. The parking lot's gravel made that sound like an unmade bed turned under a giant. I could feel the alignment was perfect. The way the wheel returned to center with just enough resistance to make you trust it. Whoever had owned this before either loved it or wanted it reliable for reasons unrelated to love. I made it to the gate before the GPS spoke. The voice was a calm, female voice. The default one you never change unless you have too much time. In 300 feet, turn right, it said. The screen showed a route to February 9th, 2021. I turned left out of spite as the unit recalculated, still polite, make a U-turn if possible. Past midnight, the city was the part of a party where the fun people had gone home and the ones left were going to regret things. I drove past a shuttered laundromat and a bar that had chairs on tables. Make a U-turn, if possible. By the time I got home, the GPS had suggested 6 U-turns and asked me twice to proceed to the route. I parked in the lot behind my building, turned the key, and in the new quiet, I heard the tick of cooling metal and a faint wrong sound under it, like someone tapping fingernails against a hollow door. The glove box, because of course I opened it, was stuffed with manila envelopes. Each envelope had a photo inside, not prints, not glossy, not professional. Polaroids, the kind with that soft blur that flatters nobody and makes everything look haunted. The first showed a man in a baseball cap, sitting in a car, making a face like he had just realized he was going to be late. The second, a woman with a dog in her lap, mid-laugh. The third, a little girl holding a helium balloon by the string like it was a kite. On the backs, in neat block letters, were dates and a line of numbers that looked like coordinates. I closed the glove box with the gentle care you use on an angry drawer. The paper title rustled in my jacket pocket like it wanted to be consulted. I took the key out. The GPS clicked softly as it went to sleep. I was inside before I let myself breathe like a person again. 2 days later, I tried to register the car. The DMV clerk looked at the paper, typed, squinted at the screen, and told me to sit. A white-haired man in a tie that had seen more Thanksgivings than I had came out from the back and asked where I'd gotten the vehicle. I said an estate sale. He nodded like the universe had decided to be kind to me for once, stamped something, and handed me temporary plates. You don't see one owner with this mileage often, he said. One owner, I asked. He tapped the paper. Since 2007, kept in good shape. You take care of her. I nodded like I knew how to take care of anything. The first week with the car was a honeymoon. It started in sub-zero mornings. It didn't argue on on-ramps. It swallowed my commute like it had been built for it because it had. I convinced myself the GPS was a quirk. I left it unplugged. The radio only glitched once, switching stations to static for exactly 3 seconds at exactly 3:03 p.m. on a Thursday. Coincidence, I told myself. My brain nodded while my skin shook its head. On Saturday, I picked an envelope from the glove box and typed the coordinates on the back into my phone. The map zoomed to a spot off a county road an hour north. Nina, my girlfriend, was at a pottery class that made her happier than therapy ever had, and I had nothing else to do except wonder. The weather was a sheet of metal. I drove with the heat on full and my fingers on the wheel, doing their nervous tap. The county road led to a smaller road that led to a dirt track that ended in a clearing where nothing had ever wanted to live. There were beer cans and a couch with a family of bullet holes. The coordinates dropped me at a tree with a ribbon tied around it that had once been red. A small wooden cross leaned at its base. Names burned into the wood in the kind of handwriting you use when your hands won't stop shaking. I didn't stay long. There are places where the air is too polite. You leave before it stops being. Back at home, I put the photo and envelope back in the glove box like you tuck a child in and hope they'll forget the story you told them before bed. I told myself I'd stop looking. Curiosity nodded and hid both arms behind its back. The car started making decisions. At a red light on Tuesday, the auto locks clicked without my finger involved. The horn blipped once for nobody's benefit. The radio switched to a frequency I didn't know, not static, not music. Just a tone a little too high to be comfortable, like dental equipment singing. I pulled the fuse box cover, found the radio fuse, pulled it. The tone kept playing. I turned the car off at the next gas station. The tone stopped with the engine. When I turned the key back on, the GPS lit even though I hadn't plugged it in, even though the cable lay limp under the dash, like a dead snake. Favorites. Scrolling on its own, the newest date, tomorrow, glowed gently as if selected. I found a second fuse panel in the engine bay and pulled everything labeled Info, Audio, Nav, AUX, OBD. The engine kept purring. The GPS kept being sure of itself. I unsucked the GPS from the windshield and put it in the back seat. The screen kept glowing. I laughed in the kind of way you hope your neighbors don't hear. That night, after Nina went to bed, I sat in the driver's seat with the dome light off and the car off and the keys in my hand. In the quiet, something ticked under the rear deck, like the car was counting in a language older than the odometer. There's a handle inside the trunk these days, a glow-in-the-dark release so kids don't suffocate, because a generation ago we learned things the hardest way possible. Whoever had this car before me had cut the cord. A little rectangle of plastic sat where the handle should have been. The edges clean like it had been done with professional patience. There were scratches on the inside of the trunk lid, not long ones, not cinematic gouges, small, polite, like someone had tried to etch a note with their fingernail and then had been distracted by the end of air. I lifted my phone, thumbed on the flashlight, and brought the light close. Letters. Not quite letters. The idea of letters. As if the writer had known once what shapes sound makes, and then forgotten everything except the effort. I closed the trunk because my hands were shaking, and I love my hands. A week in, the car tried to drive itself. I was on the bypass coming back from a closing shift, the kind of night where the air tastes like salt from other people's sweat. My exit was coming up. I signaled. The wheel stiffened, not locked, resistant, like a hand pressing against mine. The GPS lit without being plugged in and gently, cheerfully told me to continue straight for 7.4 miles. Fight a car, and you will lose if the car is patient. I eased to the shoulder and braked until the wheels made that little wet squeal they make when they're embarrassed. The wheel loosened. The GPS recalculated as if it had never had an opinion. I sat on the shoulder with hazard lights popping and told myself it was an electronic power steering glitch. I told myself I would take it to a mechanic with a laptop and a face that doesn't move when he tells you a price. I told myself a lot of things while truckers blew me kisses with their horns. I didn't go to a mechanic. What would I say? Hey, the ghost in my sedate sedan wants me to visit memorial trees and let the radio scream at me. Can you rotate the tires? I posted the car for sale. I used my respectable account on the respectable site for respectable people who want to sell respectable things and not end up in a lot by the river at 10 at night. I cleaned the car until it shone the way silver only shines when it has nothing else left to do. I took photos in a bright grocery parking lot at noon. I said it ran great and had been in one owner's careful hands for years. All of that was technically true. The first person who came to look at it was a woman with hair the color of sunrise when the sky hasn't decided whether it's going to be kind. Her name was Maya. She asked if she could drive it around the block. I said sure and handed her the key with the cheerfulness of a person who believes in a future where he is not haunted by an appliance. We got a block and a half before the GPS lit itself and picked November 3rd, 2020. Maya laughed and said, "Old owners, right?" Yeah, I agreed like a coward. I told her the suction cup would leave a ring on the windshield if we pulled it. Better to leave it till after the sale. She asked if we could test the highway. I nodded. She merged smoothly. The car purred like a dog that has decided it will love you if you feed it correctly. We took the next exit and looped back. At the top of the ramp, the light turned yellow and then red, and she braked. We heard it more than felt it. Tap, tap from the back, polite, twice. Maya glanced at me. I smiled like my face had been stapled that way. Back in the lot, she said she wanted to sleep on it. I said, of course. She drove away in a different car, not mine, waving through the window with the ease of a person whose hours add up. 2 days later, a news item floated past my eyes at 5 a.m. when my body had given up and my brain was taking a victory lap. A white Civic had been found in a ravine upstate. The driver had blown a tire, lost control. The photo in the article was small. The plate was not visible. I wouldn't have noticed it, except the article named the driver. Maya. The ravine was off a county road. The county road was on the way to one of the coordinates I had already visited, where a ribbon had been tied around a tree. Reality is not good at proving the things it needs you to believe. That's what makes superstition so effective. I told myself the world had a lot of roads. I told myself Maya was a common name. I told myself not to go to her memorial page because the photos would be the same soft blur as the ones in my glove box, and I would lose another layer of denial. I told myself this, and then clicked. In the second photo, she was holding a dog. Same as a Polaroid in my glove box, same dog, same smile. My stomach went cold in that way where it might as well be empty. I went to the car with the Polaroid and held it up next to the dashboard. In the photo, the car's air freshener hung from the mirror like a tiny green tree. The tree was still there. The trunk release cord still wasn't. I stopped trying to sell it. You can still get rid of things you can't sell. I called a junkyard 3 towns over so nobody who knew me would notice. I told the man I had a vehicle without a title that I'd be happy for him to crush for parts. He said, bring it by, cash in hand. I drove out early on a Wednesday because mornings make me brave. The GPS was polite and silent until the last mile, then woke to tell me I had reached my destination and that it was on the left. The junkyard was a neat kind of mess. Rows of cars stacked on each other like metal had learned to breed. A dog barked once and then decided I wasn't worth it. The man who came out to meet me had forearms like history teachers never do. He took my cash without looking at the amount, then peered into the car and whistled low. Clean, he said. You sure? Dead engine, I lied. Too expensive to fix. He nodded the way men nod when they agree. Lying is useful grease. He told me to leave it by Bay 3, and he'd handle it. I left it by Bay 3. I stood there with the key in my palm and the kind of nostalgia you get for something that has been bad to you. The radio came on by itself. Not loud, a whisper, not a song. A voice counting 1, 2, 3, 4. I couldn't make out the rest because the junkyard machine started with a cough and drowned the sound, and the dog decided suddenly that I was new again and worth a bark. I turned and walked toward the office for the receipt I told myself I needed. I got maybe 20 steps before I heard it. A sound cars aren't supposed to make unless something has gone very wrong, and something has gone very wrong in exactly this junkyard. The engine revved, sharp, a bark like a laugh. The gear engaged with a clunk. Metal scraped on concrete as a wheel turned too far and kissed a bay door. I ran without meaning to. By the time I reached the entrance to Bay 3, the car had moved itself 5 feet forward. The man shouted something that sounded surprised, and then something that sounded angry, and then something that sounded like, oh. The car stopped. Idle. Innocent. The radio voice kept counting, patient. The man stared at me, then at the car, then at the chain on the wall, then at me again. I don't want your business, he said. I don't want your anything. Take it. Get off my lot. I left without the receipt, which I would never have looked at again anyway. The GPS waited until I was on the highway to ask me to take exit 17 toward the county road with the memorial ribbon. Back home, I parked 2 streets away and walked the last bit because I was embarrassed to be seen with the car I owned. I lay on my bed and tried to make my brain watch something stupid. It kept giving me images from the glove box. I pulled the box from the car and carried it up and dumped the envelopes on my kitchen table like a postal worker after a long day. There were more than I had thought. 3 dozen? 50? Each Polaroid had a date and coordinates. Some had names. Some had only initials. Halfway down the stack, I found one I recognized, before I could pretend I didn't. Maya holding a dog. My throat did something I didn't know it could do. Under Maya's photo was another I didn't want to see. It wasn't the face I dreaded. It was the angle. Me, taken from behind the wheel. A reflection in the windshield made a double of my head. On the back, in neat block letters, November 19th, 2025, 2 months from now, and a set of coordinates that, when I typed them into my phone with my heart tripping, put a pin right where I was sitting. I threw up into the sink because the bathroom felt too far, and I didn't want to be in a hallway when the future arrived. You can rationalize a lot. You can pretend someone had photoshopped a Polaroid. You can tell yourself the coordinates were someone's idea of a fun Mad Libs for the eternally online. You can put the envelope with your own face back in the glove box and close it with your palms pressed together like a person who is praying without admitting it. You can also go very quiet and practical and start making lists, because lists are the only way some of us can move. What I've learned, I think, the GPS will wake and suggest routes to dates and its favorites. The radio will play things that aren't radio. The trunk release has been disabled. There are scratches inside the trunk lid. The glove box photos correspond to memorials, news items, headlines. When I try to get rid of the car, someone who touches the idea of it gets hurt. My photo is in the stack now. The newest favorite is always tomorrow. The next morning, the car didn't start. I turned the key and got nothing. I felt a joy so sharp it might as well have been terror. I popped the hood, which made me feel brave, and stared at a battery so clean it might have been an advertisement. The leads were tight. The fuses I had pulled were in a bag on the passenger seat. I put them back in. Still nothing. When I stepped away, the radio turned on. 1, 2, 3, 4. Calm, patient counting. Then a cough. Then a wet sound that could have been a person clearing their throat or something in the ventilation holding on. Then another voice, this one thin and high, said please, in a way that was not begging so much as reminding. I slammed the door because slamming is the only thing we get to do sometimes. I took the bus to work like a grown-up who had made a choice. On the way home, the bus stalled at a light. The driver apologized to nobody in particular. The lights went out and then came back, and we moved. When I got off, the car was parked where I had left it, a polite presence that made my street look expensive. The hood had frost on it. When I passed, the warmth where the radio sat had made a circle of condensation inside. Someone had drawn a smiley face in it with a finger and then wiped it away. I told Nina I'd sold it to a friend. She said good, she never liked the way I looked at it when I came back in. Like it had something I had left in it, and I was too proud to go ask for it back. I stopped driving it. That didn't stop the coordinates from updating. The newest favorite stayed tomorrow, always tomorrow. I started getting unknown number texts at odd hours that were just strings of numbers with degrees and decimals. I thought about changing my number and then didn't, because the idea of not receiving them was worse. I went back to the dark web forum to message the seller. The listing was gone. The account that had posted it now showed a status in a language that might as well have been anger. I posted a question into the void. What is V09? The only reply I got was a message from a new account with no history. You're late. Deploy or return. Do not burn. I stared until the letters moved. I asked what deploy meant, and the account sent a single emoji, old phone, tiny, yellow, question mark, then a pin at coordinates that matched one of the favorites. Then another line, passengers owed 2. I realized then that if I had met the car any earlier in my life, when I was a different kind of broke, a different kind of angry, I would have told myself this was a way to make the ledger make sense. Deliver the ode. Square the stack of Polaroids until the bottom wouldn't bend. There's a reason certain stories recruit men my father's age and boys my nephew's. The car was a tool. Tools don't have morals. They just want to be used. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of the bed and watched Nina not stop breathing. At 4 a.m., the apartment building exhaled, and the pipes did their sympathy groan, and the city got ready to be expensive again. I went downstairs when it was light enough to pretend everything ordinary. I opened the car and sat in the driver's seat and held the key without turning it. The radio clicked, the GPS lit. Favorites gently pulsing. Tomorrow. My photo was in the glove box on top of the stack now. The back had more handwriting than before. Not just a date and coordinates. A word. Trunk. I closed the glove box. No, I said to the empty car. It felt good to say. It felt stupid. I said it again, quieter and then like a joke. No. The radio voice began counting not in ones, but in tens. 10, 20, 30. Like a warm-up, like a coach. The wheel twitched under my hands like a dog dreaming. I grabbed the GPS and yanked. The suction gave with a burp. I took the unit inside and disemboweled it on my kitchen counter. Under the plastic was a board that looked like every board in every device these days. And then, soldered where no board diagram on the internet diagrammed, a second board, thin as a candy wrapper, laced to the first with wires so neat someone had watched a lot of medical shows. The second board had a SIM slot. The SIM was gone. The antenna line wasn't. Whoever had needed to speak to the GPS didn't need a phone network anymore. On a disgusting hunch, I went back to the car with a magnet I used to pick up screws I'd drop. I passed it under the dash where the OBD port lives. The magnet clicked against something glued in the gap behind. A little black rectangle came off in my hand, thinner than a saltine. Inside, nothing I recognized until I saw the printed letters on the smallest chip, BTLNR. A blend of letters like someone had made a word out of a bruise. I threw the rectangle in the sink and turned the tap and watched it sulk under water. The part of my head that still makes jokes wondered if I had just run water through a $1,000 surveillance device. The rest of my head wondered if this was more than surveillance. If I'm honest, I thought about driving the car into the river. Not because I thought it would drown, because there's a logic to returning things to the wet dark when you don't want them to make shapes in your house anymore. The forum message said, "Do not burn," but it hadn't said, "Do not drown." I didn't do it, not because I'm clever, because the only ramp I know is under cameras, and the car has taught me who is really watching. So I did the thing I should have done first and didn't, because I am allergic to being told what to do. I knocked on my neighbor's door. Rob owns a tow truck and a laugh like gravel in a blender. He has hauled me out of snow twice and once out of a fight. I told him I needed a car moved to a storage unit I couldn't drive it to, cash. No questions. He shrugged like he had seen worse, and we went downstairs and he backed the truck up with the kind of grace my body has never known. He got the sedan on the flatbed clean, strapped, tight, professional. I sat in the cab with him, tried to keep my knees from learning tap dance. He asked where. I gave him an address 2 towns over where a storage facility has doors that make you feel safe, because they are tall. We made it 4 blocks before his truck hiccuped. The dash lit like Christmas. Then it all went black. Then it came back, and every light blinked. Like a Morse code, my skin understood, even if my brain didn't. Rob cursed in a way that would have made my grandfather feel included. He coasted to the shoulder with more faith than brake. We sat there breathing each other's air for a long minute. Behind us, the sedan's radio came on. We couldn't hear the words, not in the cab, but the green light in the dash of the sedan glowed like an eye that had woken. Rob turned the key on his rig. Nothing. He tried again. Nothing. He looked at me then in a way people look at you when they haven't liked the smell of a job since it started but were too polite to say. "We're done," he said. "Unlucky. Happens." He got out, lowered the bed by hand, released the straps with professional regret. The sedan rolled off like a cat stepping off a chair you've told it not to get on. Rob handed me back cash I'd given him. I told him to keep it. He said if he kept it, something else would keep me. He died a week later of a heart thing no one had seen coming. His daughter posted a photo of him holding a dog on the fundraiser. I didn't look in my glove box for a matching Polaroid because some mercies you have to invent. But the car started locking its doors by itself when I walked past. The horn would whisper a single beep when I shifted my groceries to the other arm, the way you whisper to a friend to say I'm here at a party where they feel alone. The dome light would turn on when I looked out the window at night as if to say I'm awake. Someone, I don't know who we call a someone anymore, carved V09 with a key into the paint under the driver's handle while it was parked under my bedroom window. One morning, I found a new envelope on the passenger seat. No keyholes had been scratched. No window had been broken. The envelope had my name in neat block letters. Inside, a set of photos printed on regular paper, screen grabs. Each image showed a different car parked at different coordinates. Under each, a name. Under that, deployed. At the bottom of the stack, a blank rectangle. Under it, my name. Under my name, DUE. I am not a hero. There is a version of this story where I call the police and let them tell me my brain is young for my age, where I bring the car in and let someone in a busy shirt connect a laptop and decide I have brought them their favorite kind of puzzle, where I hand over keys to a system that will lose them in a drawer, labeled later. There is another version where I drive to the river and count to a number and don't jump when the car does, because I have decided not to be brave in that particular way. There is the version I am in, where I am in a motel an hour away from my life with a view of a parking lot through a curtain that pretends not to be thin. I moved because staying felt like an invitation and leaving felt like a dare. The car is parked at the far edge of the lot under a light that makes cheap things look expensive. Sometimes the hazard lights blink once, slow, like a pulse so lazy you think it might have stopped. I don't sleep much. When I do, my dreams look like footage from the cameras in my building. Wide angle, slowed, grainy. In them, I'm always walking to the car with my keys held like a weapon. And in them, the dome light comes on at the exact right time to make me feel wanted. I still have the envelope with my face in it. The date on the back has not changed. The coordinates still point to my apartment. The word trunk is still printed like a thing taught in a school that doesn't exist anymore. Nina keeps asking when I'm coming home. I keep telling her I'm handling a work thing because people accept that as a reason for any kind of absence now. I want to tell her to leave, to stay with a friend, to go to her mother's, to change the locks with a key that is not made of metal. I want to tell her I loved her from the first time she told a joke that didn't work and didn't look to see if anyone had laughed before she laughed at herself. I want to tell her she shouldn't open anything that isn't already open. And I started writing this because I don't know what else to do with the noise. I'll end it because that was always the point. There's a knock on my motel door. 2 gentle taps, polite the way you knock when you don't want to fight, then one slow, like someone thought better of it. When I look out through the peephole, nobody is there, but the car lights blink once. Lazy, like a cat stretching. The radio is on inside, and even from here I can feel the count. 10, 20, 30. My phone buzzes on the table, and the message is coordinates with the time attached, not 2:14. My name, then DUE. In the glove box, back home under my photo, a second one has appeared. Same angle, same windshield reflection. The passenger seat is occupied now. Her yellow scarf is visible in the corner of the frame. This is the last thing I know for sure. When I close my eyes, the number V09 floats behind my eyelids like a brand. When I open them, the motel curtain breathes, and the lot outside looks like a place that has always been waiting for a car to pull away. If I go outside now and get in and turn the key, the GPS will be polite, the radio will count, the wheel will resist, then assist. the way we all do when we've told ourselves a story about ourselves and we want to see how it ends. If I don't go, the knock will come again. It will keep being polite until it doesn't need to be. It will wait in the lot under the light that makes cheap things look expensive. It will hum a song I don't know, but that my bones do. If this post stays up, don't take that as proof that I found a way out. It might just mean the car is patient. And if you see a listing that says vehicle for sale, cash only, must pick up alone. Don't tell yourself you're built different. Don't empty your wallet into a story just because you think you can write the ending. Don't bring a phone. Don't bring a friend. Don't look in the trunk. Thanks for listening. I really enjoyed putting this story together for you. If you liked it, hit that like button, subscribe for more stories, and share it with someone who's into this kind of stuff. See you next time.